History is full of rich connections to God and the great outdoors He created for us. I'm on a mission to fellowship with other fathers as we introduce our sons and daughters to the beauty and bounty of the world where we are blessed to walk with our Heavenly Father in His garden. My name is Jacob Whitley, and this is Fathers and the Great Outdoors. This episode is brought to you by greatoutdoorspodcast.com, where you can find a lot of fun merch, including custom-designed Christian-based apparel, the Genesis 27:3, Take Your Quiver and Your Bow and Go Hunt Me Some Venison, or He Leads Me Beside Still Waters, He Restores My Soul. It's a nice little fishing shirt. Be sure to check out greatoutdoorspodcast.com today. Welcome to Fathers in the Great Outdoors. Today we have Brad Smith. How you doing?
Good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Can't really complain.
Good deal. We got a little little wet weather here at the house, but yeah, other than that, man, it's some much needed rain going on too.
Yeah, I got a little rain happening here. It's not much. It's just a little drizzle here and there.
Good.
Where specifically are you at?
I live in Maysville.
Maysville.
Yep.
I'm just below Raleigh.
Okay. Yeah, I was over there. What was it, two weekends ago for the Dixie Deer Classic? We were up there.
Yeah, that's right. I think you were saying you had a booth there.
Yeah, well, I jump in with the Dixie Decoy guys, since I kind of help pro staff with them a little bit. So jump in and help them out in the booth and get to advertise myself a little bit as well. So it's not a bad little gig. I enjoy it. It's a fun weekend.
Yeah, I'd imagine. It would be interesting to get involved with I guess just really anybody out there being able to see the interaction with the guests.
Oh yeah, it's a good time. Interacting with so many people that just come in and out of the booth. People who's been coming to the show for years, that solely just come there just to hang out, meet and greet, and do things. It's one of them, always a good time, and uh, so it's a busy weekend for sure, though.
Oh yeah, I imagine. Do you see a lot of kids coming through there?
We get quite a few kids, and the kids that come through the booth or whatever, we try to give them some like free stickers and things like that, get them engaged with stuff. I was kind of blessed on that. Was it the Saturday? My wife and kids showed up completely surprised. Didn't even know they were coming. Uh, so it was fun to have my little girl running around the booth for a little bit, putting on hats and looking in the mirror, doing things like that. So.
Very cool. I'm sure that was fun. I would have enjoyed that surprise myself.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah. So why don't we jump into just a little bit more about you and kind of how you got started in the great outdoors?
Okay. Yeah. So I was born and raised down in South Carolina. Kind of started in Pillion, moved over to the Lexington side of things. But I've always grown up being in outdoors, whether it was fishing with one of my grandpas at an early age, to hunting deer, squirrel, rabbits, both with my dad and my grandfather, to fishing, to carrying on all throughout my childhood age, growing up. I had a good outdoors background anyway. I think probably one of my best years, especially in a deer stand, was probably fifth or sixth grade. I was 10, 11, 12 years old kind of time frame. Got to finally kill my first deer all on my own with my grandfather sitting in a tree 10 feet away from me, completely asleep. So when I pulled the trigger, I was trying to wake him up. It's one of the memories you'll never forget. It's like, hey, like he's sitting over in the tree, got a doe walking down the trail, and I'm trying to holler out to him like very softly, hey, Papa, there's a deer. He's asleep, so I just throw up the 243, pull the trigger, and drop her in her tracks. And I happen to look over and he's like, it looks like he's like trying to climb up the tree. It scared him so bad.
Mm.
So we get over there and funny story. We start field dressing her, and all of a sudden, like 10 minutes later, I look up the trail and here comes two bucks following the trail right behind her. So I grabbed the gun again, throw up, drop the first buck in his tracks, and he's like, I think that second shot scared me more than the first shot did. So lo and behold, my first time actually getting to shoot a gun in the woods by myself. I kill a doe and then a decent 4 point buck, all on my own. So it's great memorable experience, especially to have it with my grandfather, who's no longer alive. To go through that whole season, it was fun and enjoyable, man, and that just kind of lit a fire for deer hunting wise. Picked up a little bit of duck hunting and goose hunting with my dad along the way. It didn't fire off on me until a little bit later in life. Um, to finished through high school, got done with high school, tried college for a little bit. College didn't work out for me, so I went in and joined the Marine Corps. Joined the Marine Corps, which moved me up to North Carolina. And we did a lot of pier fishing, a little bit of deer hunting here and there on base when we had some free time between a lot of deployments and stuff. And so did that in North Carolina from 2002, well, really about 2003 to present, and kind of led to me to where I am now for the last 6.5 years, guiding for fishing and waterfowl hunts here in Eastern North Carolina.
Okay. And so you said waterfowl. Is that guiding for deer as well?
No, I don't do guided trips for deer. It's just mainly waterfowl. I don't have the access to private land, so
Hmm.
everything I do is public open water hunts in layout boats for that.
Okay. Very cool.
So
Before we get into that more, the going back to that story with your where you woke your grandfather up. I'm just curious, how old was he? And I don't know if you said yourself at that time.
I was probably 11, 12-ish, somewhere in that time frame of my life. He had to be, man, I want to say he might have been in his late 50s
Okay.
at that time frame. He died in 2011. I think it was 11 is when he died. So yeah, so that was my early elementary kind of school age days, or me killing my first deer with him.
Hmm. Is that, I assume that's on your dad's side?
Yep, that was my dad's dad.
Anything on
My
your, go ahead.
so my mom's dad, he died. I want to say when I was in third or fourth grade, kind of time frame. Uh, but mainly with him, like we did a lot of pond fishing, creek fishing, um, kind of things with him. When I would go to him or stay with him in a couple weeks during the summer time frame. He had a big farm with some cows and chickens and a few crops. So he had his own pond built back there too. So we'd all the time go back there and just catfish, brimfish.
Yeah. Did the going from your grandfather, like between your grandfather and your dad, was there a big distinction between the kind of activities they enjoyed that you would be involved with?
Not really. The my dad, grandpa, both hand in hand, did a lot of deer hunting together growing up. So that was there with my dad. With me and my dad growing up, there was some deer hunting, a lot of bow fishing, a few fishing trips, but not as much as my granddad when he was alive at the time.
Hmm.
Now it's kind of it's transitioned more. And it's funny, after I joined the Marine Corps, my dad he apologized for kind of growing up, saying he felt that he was more selfish on not getting me involved in a lot of things and need be, well, especially on woodworking, because my dad's like a woodworking master. He's awesome with things. Uh, but no, but we still had a really close relationship growing up and doing things. Um, you know, both sides, either granddad or dad, uh, both sides of them, a lot of hunting and fishing with them.
Yeah. So obviously you grew up with the mentality of an individual interest of the outdoors. So it seems pretty natural that you would transition into the guiding business. Was there anything specific that drew you to that?
Man, so one of my childhood dreams, other than being a trash man when I was a little kid,
that
for some reason that was one of my childhood goals was the trash man.
that's not that weird because my dad actually had the same thought.
So yeah, that was one of the things. But other than that, always wanted to become a game warden.
Yeah.
So that was one of the avenues I was looking at. Uh, a few years prior to me retiring at a Marine Corps, was that a process of it. So I went ahead and already had a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Kind of wanted to start forefronting that and kind of getting ready. But then, you know, I was doing a lot of tournament fishing, and things around that here in Eastern North Carolina. And it kind of started getting pretty decent at it. And especially for 16 years in the Marine Corps, I was involved with a lot of teaching foreign militaries and stuff like that. So I had a pretty good uh, style of teaching people how to do things. So I started dabbling with it and coming up with the idea and talking with the wife. And I was like, look, like, I think I can transition and do this whole guiding business thing. Because I've been on some guided trips where I really wasn't impressed with the captain
Hmm.
or felt like I could have done things better or made a trip experience better for having a personality to deal with people. So we kind of related back to that. She goes, look, basically, if you can like make some type of little profit out of it, and it's one of them things that you enjoy doing, being in outdoors, and help being out there. She's like, go for it. So lo and behold, she came up with my name of Gunny B Outdoors, and we just kind of ran with it. So it's one of the things that's been going, and it's been fun and great process for sure.
Yeah. So what would be the meaning behind the name for you?
So I retired from the Marine Corps as a gunnery sergeant.
Hmm.
B being Brad, my first name, and just outdoors is just coming in the outdoors. So when I first started it, it was nothing but flounder gigging, bow fishing, and duck hunting trips. But then, North Carolina with the whole flounder season and all that kind of getting messed up.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess like I'll transition and like really get better at this whole fishing thing. And that kind of took off really good, especially being able to teach people um, how to fish and techniques with artificial baits versus going out there sitting and waiting kind of things. So that was the whole name of Gunny B Outdoors. She's like, hey, tie it back to the military. And I was like, yeah, I really don't want to do that though. I want that chapter of my life to be done. She's like, no, look, like just own it. Like it's a good little ring, and you'll kind of take off there, and boom, it's kind of taken off on
Yeah.
that side of it.
Yeah. It's surprising too. No, well, no, I take that back. It's not surprising, but I've noticed, especially on the East Coast, how many people gravitate toward veteran run businesses. Um, so even if it doesn't mean a whole lot on a personal level, it's still something that people they gravitate toward it, I think, because of almost like wanting to be a part of it, wanting to be thankful, and just kind of the patriotic nature of it, I believe.
Hmm. And I could see that too. Being a little more Southern state kind of thing.
Hmm.
Of having more of military appreciation. And granted, like years ago, it seemed like there was much more military appreciation than it is going nowadays, anyway.
True.
But you still get a lot of people that do appreciate and do things. I've had some people that duck hunted with me before, and it's like, man, we chose you because of a military background.
Right.
So I was like, like, it feels good. I was like, but like I don't want that to be the sole reason like you select me, like to to become a part of my business. Like um I want you to become like friends and family when you step on my boat and do things and have a relationship with people.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it was always one of my goals behind it too.
Yeah. And I think that aspect is going to show proven on the return customer basis.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely get a lot of people who constantly return and come back because of it.
mhm. Have you ever taken your kids out on those?
So no, so we had a long story behind the kid process, right? Um, so we went through of trying to get pregnant, infertility struggles for 16 years.
Wow.
So we did multiple rounds of like IUI, couple rounds of some at-home pregnancy things, trying back and forth, and it was our last like when I came back from my last deployment in beginning of 2019, it was like, all right, hey, let's try this in vitro thing out, right? One last shot kind of thing. So we went through a whole process, man, and uh, just tons of people from the last 16 years, like reaching out, praying, like speaking over life, like laying hands on wife's belly and doing things to the last probably 2 years of my military career, where we decided to finally full fruition of trying the IVF process and having the first round not completely take. And when the first round didn't take, being so disheartened and struggled and fought back, um, to having to take a break for a couple months and then step back up and it's all right, hey, let's give it one more shot. um so we gave it one more shot, and I think that one last shot was me probably a few months shy of me retiring anyway. What was the last hurrah on it. And you know we went and did the in vitro process, went back to the doctor to do the pregnancy test thing, and we were driving back. We'll never forget the day, man. Like we were driving back from UNC Fertility Clinic up there in Raleigh.
Hmm.
We're coming home, man. It's just like we're just waiting for a phone call, waiting for a phone call, waiting for a phone call. Kind of procrastinating, stopping at a lot of stores, back and forth, till finally, like, it's like, all right, well, let's just go home. So we started heading home, man, and we get the phone call from the UNC fertility clinic, and my wife puts it on speaker, and it's the doctor, and she's just like, the doctor doesn't sound excited when she's talking to us, and she's like, well, we were going through a lot of your blood work and stuff like that, so how are you feeling? A lot of process for my wife. It's just like, what is going on? And finally, the doctor's like, well, do you feel pregnant? She's like, no. She goes, well, you might want to start because you are.
Hmm.
And so as soon as she said that, like both of us, man, we pulled over like in tears, like over ecstatic. Um, so that process leads to where we are now today, man. March here in March, we'll have a 2-year-old little girl. That's precious as she can be, and also aggravating in toddler years. But it's fun to watch her develop, man. Like, not being like full blown yet. She's been on the boat probably the first couple months of her life.
Hmm.
We've got her life jacket and everything, man, and she'll jump on the boat. I'll be in the yard or in the shop working on the boat, and she's all the time wanting to be inside of the boat, and run around and doing things. So she loves the water. So looking forward to this coming summer now that she's actually able to walk and run and hopefully be able to stabilize herself, to get her out there a little bit more and to do things, interact with her a little bit more on the waters, sand beach with some fish and things like that, and see how it progresses.
Yeah. You have a little
So
shotgun for
not yet,
her?
not yet.
Maybe
There,
just one of
there's
those,
been
one of the toy ones that make noises so she can pretend.
well, I was looking. Actually, we were at the Dixie Deer Classic this past week or the other weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
I was walking through before the show opened up, and they had some little youth model 22 rifles, the little varmint guns or whatever.
Hmm.
And then, like, one of them was like the pink and purple black camo. And I was like, oh man, this is so cool. Like, I need this one day. Like, yeah, she's still kind of young for that, but maybe when she's like 5, we'll start reaching out, and just see how it progresses with that.
Yeah.
I've kind of I've lucked out, man, and got on with a really good rod company too. It was called Bull Bay Rods down in Florida. So when I had the baby, they made me a personalized rod for her, which is really awesome. It's one of those little 5 foot rods anyway, too. So she's going to have her own little rod for the first year, few years of her life that she's going to able to cast and do things with. So it's kind of pretty neat.
Yeah. Very cool. So when you were growing up, and you were looking to, like, when you got married and you're looking to have a family, did you have a good idea what you wanted to introduce your future kids to?
Man, not one bit, right? So we we always talked about having kids growing up. You know, both we got married at a young age. We were both 21 when we got married, and you figure that was what, 2004. And we'll tell anybody about it. It's like, look, we were both young and selfish, and we had no clue what we were getting ourselves into. We were just young, hot, and crazy for each other.
Hmm.
And and good Lord willing, man, it's worked out great now. But we had no clue what we were getting ourselves into. It probably took us a good 10 years in our marriage hitting rock bottom, for us to turn around and, like, look, um, if we want our marriage to work, uh, we got to put God in our marriage. So we started back going to church, getting relationships involved, put God first in our marriage. And ever since then, man, like, our relationship together started to grow and expound and do things and make it better. Uh, and our relationship now, man, 21 year plus marriage going on, man, and we're stronger than ever, but because of putting God in our marriage has really helped out.
Yeah.
And then, and growing with that faith, and now having a child being involved into it, to where it's like, man, like, we want to make sure, like, she gets a good proper upbringing with that and sees the light it through us, to know what a good relationship looks and should be like. So it's just trying to make sure that she sees that.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
um and it's one of the things. It's new parents at 41 years old, man, it's a brand new learning process. And it's fun and it's challenging, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. No, definitely. That's kind of the pinnacle of life, is being a parent.
You think, right?
Yeah. Did you, at the time, I guess going back a little bit, did you grow up with Christian parents?
We did a little bit. So I want to say it was probably late middle, not middle school, probably elementary-ish school years. Like, we started going to church and doing things. My dad's mom was always like in on the church side and very religious and doing things. Heck, man, even still to this day, my grandma does Sunday dinners at the house back home.
Hmm.
So that's just kind of the tight knit family that we kind of had and grew up with. My wife's family was the same way. Like her whole time growing up, they did Sunday dinners growing up with the whole family. Um, so we started probably going to church as a family like late elementary school, and it kind of grew up to what once I hit the youth age, getting involved into a church that had a good youth program for a while. It was really strong and active. And actually probably the first true youth pastor I had and had a really good relationship with. Once he ended up leaving the church, uh, would be about the time that I faltered and fell in my life too. Um, but that story comes full tuition back a couple years ago. So we'll hit on that one too, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, he left the church, man, and went wandering ways, man, and do what teenagers do all through life. Rebelled against parents and did things, um, and literally, like from probably late teenage years to I guess just shy of 30, somewhere around there. But before we fully focused and went back to a working relationship with God. Um, so, but it's funny, like how that worked out because that same youth pastor that left, we became friends on social media a few years ago, man. And a couple years ago, he even came out and duck hunted with me, stayed at the house. We've communicated, we've done things now, and it's been a fun relationship, kind of getting to know each other a little bit back and forth.
Yeah.
Much later on in life, so just to see like a full fruition circle, it's like, hey, man, like no matter what, like you get it. Like people stumble, falter, do things, but um, no matter what, like you can regather focus and put your sights back on God and still do good as long as you're still there, in life.
Yeah. I think a lot of people miss that, and think there's no coming back kind of thing, but that I guess that's missing the whole point of Christ.
Yeah, and I guess it started probably almost a year ago too. Is I've also started my own men's group here in Maysville,
Hmm.
and we call it In the Wild, and we base it off of when God was out wandering in the wild and was tempted by the devil constantly every day, and how the angels would be there to rescue him and do things and pick him up, and how he battled God or battled the devil every day of the whole process. So that's kind of what my men's group was fought or gathered around, was just trying to get men that like to do things outdoors to come together. So we have it's we only meet once a month now here in the shop, but it's just a starting process for me, man, and it challenges me and my faith to get me to jump in the Bible and study, to have other guys come in here and try to fellowship with them and give them a good word, at least once a month.
Yeah. We were just
So
talking in the life group that I lead about the concept of um, the kind of you get to a point where you go through the motions and you just show up to church and you're waiting for that fulfillment and connection to come back. plus the aspect of getting together in a life group or in your circumstance with other men, kind of have one of those iron sharpen iron scenarios.
Yep.
And if you're going through the motions and someone else isn't, being in that situation where you're talking to each other is going to force you to come out of going through the motions and engage you more and kind of rekindle that excitement that you might have lost, which happens to everybody from time to time when you connect with God, and then you can feel it, and then all of a sudden it just kind of fizzles out, because you lose focus. Having that relationship is what could kindle that flame, basically.
Yeah. We had a instance like that probably a couple years ago, man. The church we were going to, there was an instance of like that happened at the church itself. I'm not going to go into it, but like from that moment on, we felt like we wasn't getting talked to anymore, or preached upon, or doing things, or having a learning lesson. We felt that we were getting criticized almost and ridiculed from to going to church at this place. So we like kind of started stiff arming it, man, and was getting hurt by hurt by the church, um, and ended up having to go church shopping all over again. And that was honestly one of the hardest things, because that church is what saved our marriage to begin with. And then so when you go through the whole process of like, hey, this is where like our relationship rekindled and had this happen, to now we're feeling this way, and like, what do we do? And you go shopping, basically shopping for churches all over again to try to get fed,
Mm-hmm.
and find a place where you want to feel welcomed again. It's tough.
Yeah.
Um, and it's definitely tough from a man's perspective. Like, hey, you walk into a place and you don't feel like, it's like, nah, I'm really not digging this, and it's a lot of back and forth to, you, the church we're in now, like, we started going there and it's like, hey, like, feeling it really good. And then we had some friends that were there and they're like, yeah, like, we're leaving now. We're not coming back to this church. We're just not. It's like, man, like, like we just got here. We're feeling it a little bit, and now you're gonna up and leave. And hey, man, like, I'm about to start this group. Like, it's kind of coming through the church, but like it's not directly correlated with the church. So like, but it it is what it is, man. I get it.
Yeah.
The church can hurt people, but that's a church. Um, it's I feel like church is a church, but until you have an actual relationship with someone and with God, like, trying to get fed the word, it's a different perspective on a lot of things that way.
Yeah. The way I understand it is the church itself is not the building, it's the community that's there.
Yep.
So that could be anywhere essentially. And uh, like, I've talked to my dad about the current church that we attend, and every now and then he disagrees with the pastor. And I said, that's fine. Sometimes I do too. I don't go for him. A lot of times I'll even skip the sermon and just hang out with people in the lobby, because that connection is what matters to me. And as long as that
Yeah.
connection's there, I'm going to keep going to that church.
Yep. And honestly, like, I get it. Like, that's one of the things I miss the most about the church that saved our relationship, is I do miss a lot of the people and the connections that we had in the church.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, a lot of people that we still communicate and still have great relationship with, and still dinners and do things. A lot of people left at the same time too, because it was the same process. So, it just kind of throws that out there too. But like,
Yeah.
we still have a good working community, and it's, we're all spread throughout different churches now, but we still communicate. We're all together at one church, but now we're all different places. And even some of those guys still come to my men's group kind of thing. So, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Good way to keep connected.
Yeah.
It's like
And
when,
we
go ahead.
no, I was just we got group chats and texts and everything, and a couple guys get involved with some of the fishing tournaments that we do, so it's fun.
So, while we're on the topic, where would you say you see God in the great outdoors?
Man, you can see him anywhere, and I will tell you straight up off the bat, one of the best probably times I see him clearly is during duck season because I'm having to be out on the water early and late. I mean, we're normally on the water like 5:30 in the morning, getting ready to set everything out. And man, when you can sit there and start cooking breakfast and start to see that sun peek up over Cape Lookout Shoals or over Pamlico Sound, when that sun starts hitting that sky just a little bit and he starts painting a picture that morning, like you can just sit back and it's like you can't be mad for the day. I don't care what happens. Like you see this, nah. Added with my great breakfast that you're getting to on the boat, man. Like, but between that and this sunrise we're watching, nah, man, it don't get no better in my opinion. Right then and there. Um, so it's just it's a great time to sit back and not get taken away by people sitting in front of a phone doing this, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Sit back, conversate, take a breath, and enjoy the outdoors and see what God created um, to bring into our lives every single day of life, and give thanks for that is always a big, big takeaway for me.
Yeah. It's one of the
Woo.
most what? Something happened?
Uh, Big bolt of lightning, I guess, hit and just shook the whole building.
Oh. That's God saying amen.
That's a heck of an amen, brother. Uh,
um, so what would you say that you think the significance of a father's role is in introducing their kids to God?
oh, man, you're gonna hit something deep, ain't you? Um, you know, honestly, like I would think it's just trying to be a good, decent role model for that kid, um, whether boy or girl, and show to have a daily relationship, with the true father behind that, having a prayer or sitting down and reading some scripture with that kid, whether that be in the morning, at night, praying over them at night, just reading a small little Bible verse, just to kind of open their eyes at a young age, so and they can watch you. You can watch them develop as they watch you develop. Uh, because it's true, man. Like to have a childlike faith is like no other because a kid's going to tell you how they feel and when they feel it.
Hmm.
Um,
Very honest
so
people.
yeah, they are, man. So a kid's going to be way more honest than any adult at any given time. So as long as you can try to spin a good positive relationship and outlook for that kid to show them some things, and try to give them that, I think just my 2 cents, right? Yeah, you can have a good positive outlook for raising the kids towards Christ doing that. Um, it doesn't take much. I mean, just a little bit for a
Hmm.
kid. So it, you're not sitting there going to pray like 30 minutes with a kid and keeping an attention span and do things. It's little short, intermittent things here and there. You know.
Right. Does your daughter talk about God at all now?
So not yet. She's still kind of getting words together a lot. So we do a lot of prayer and stuff with her and hold hands and do things. So she'll sit there, bow her head, and it's very short lived. You know, slack of a 2-year old's attention span. Uh, but it's like, we got her saying amen, um, and trying to do things with her little, like picture Bibles and things like that. So
Yeah.
trying to do some small things with her is what we're trying to do.
I assume you have her in a daycare with the church on Sundays.
Yep. So she goes to whatever the hour and a half long is thing at the church for her age group. So yeah, she's sitting in there with them. Some days it's really easy to get her to go in there. Some days it's like, yeah, my nap went long enough. Come on the drive to church kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um, but that's about the gist of that one. But she's getting to see it and be brought up with it.
Yeah. The church that we go to has a daycare, so my kids have the luxury. Well, my oldest is now in kindergarten, so he's at regular school, but my daughter, who's there for the daily daycare, it's almost like going to a private Christian school when she's constantly learning about different things from the Bible and bringing things up, and I'm like, where did you hear that?
Yeah, it's funny. I say it's funny, but my wife just graduated or is about to graduate with her master's degree from Liberty University. So that's where she got her bachelor's degree from too, and now she's getting her master's degree from them as well. So we're gonna go up there in May so she can walk the stage with them. But we've had the conversations. There's some local schools here, the private schools with Christian backgrounds and things that like that too, to put her in versus like the public education side of things,
hmm
and see how it can pan out.
Yeah, it's it's heavy on the wallet, but good on the soul.
Yep, absolutely. Especially um, you know, growing up in a public school system all my life, and having a buddy down the street, man, like they had their kid in the public school system, and he's like, we had to pull her out, like we couldn't do it,
Hmm.
so now she's going to private school because of it.
Yeah,
Like we just couldn't, like the things that she would come home and say and speak about is like, no, we can't do that.
it's tough.
So
It's unfortunate that that's where things are now.
absolutely, and I feel it's, you know, one side of it you think is going to get, you hope for the better side of it, but a lot of it on things are probably just going to get worse.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully not, but yeah, that's the big concern is that it will
Yeah.
for sure. Um, so going back to the hunting side, are you still spending a lot of time hunting deer?
So this is the first year, the 2024 season was the first time that did not get to step foot in the woods to hunt a deer in probably a long time.
hmm
And I solely base that a lot because of the business I'm running now. And then also at the same time, some of the access to the hunting land I have. I don't have much access to hunting land anymore. Um, everything, if I want to go public land hunt, there's either the game lands that we got here or um, luckily enough, try to get somewhere if there's an open area on the base nearby.
hmm
That's about the gist of my hunting without having to pay a significant fee to go to a uh, private hunting club kind of thing.
Yeah, those get
So
pretty pricey, and they seem very rigid where you can't really do anything. But like I forget what they're called. They're not tree stands, but they're um on sticks.
yeah, they got like a lot of box blinds or whatever
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yep. So there's
Um,
there's a lot of back and forth with that, but this is the first year in I don't know, umpteen years, I didn't even get to go deer hunting or attempt to kill a deer.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I noticed you wrote down on the questionnaire bow as far as rifle versus bow.
mhm.
And it sounds like earlier on you started with the rifle. At what point did you switch to a bow?
Probably. So it's probably still the same time frame.
Hmm.
I grew up doing a lot of bow stuff. My dad was huge into archery, um, and to the point that we had a really good working relationship with one of the archery shops there close by where I grew up, in Lexington, South Carolina at the time. And we would go do a lot of 3D archery shoots and things like that. So I was pretty decent with a bow growing up. And I want to say bow wise, it probably took uh 14, 15 before I got my first actually like true archery kill with a bow.
Hmm.
Um, because I'd be stubborn and hard headed. Um, and I would carry both to stand with me. I would carry a rifle and a bow to the stand.
Ah,
And it's like, well, if they come within 30 yards, I'm gonna shoot them with the bow. If they're outside of 30 yards, I'm gonna shoot them with a rifle. And my granddaddy would give me a whole lot of hard times about it, man. He's like, well, you can't take both. You just because no matter what, you go to the gun. I was like, no, if they're close enough, I'll shoot them with the bow. Well, the one day I did, I actually shot one with a bow doing that one time. So kind of proved him on that one.
hmm.
But no, man, like, I've always enjoyed the bow hunting aspect of it, because it always felt to me it was a much closer encounter, with the animal itself, versus, hey, like I'm going to shoot at you 100 to 400 yards out, depending on if you're in a field, woods, or whatever, versus, hey, you know, now I got you 40 yards and in. Like, it's a little closer, it's a little more personable kind of thing. I've tricked you now, like, hey, I set up in the right location. I got the right wind. Everything's in my favor, like to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Um, so, so that's one of the things I've always enjoyed more about bow hunting. Um, and we used to go every year down to Florida to go after hogs, to go down there hog hunting, man. And we would go down there on bows and just have fun with it. And it was a good time. Just go down there bow hunting hogs. Because especially with them, like to get that close encounter, you had to have the wind in your favor and do things. Now, granted, their eyesight's not great, but their noses and things were really that much better. So to be able to do that side of it, with a bow and shoot a big boar or big sow was always a good reward.
Yeah. You still do something like that?
Well, we don't go down to Florida, and we haven't. Heck, man, we probably hadn't hog hunted in the last 5 years. We used to have some really good access land down in South Carolina, and unfortunately, it all got clear cutted. So all those hogs kind of moved on, and the properties that my dad has access to now, the hogs that show up like once a week maybe, and be there for 3 days, and then they're gone again. So nothing's ever any consistency. And we haven't traveled to hunt anywhere, outside of duck hunting. Like we have made some travels to go duck hunting and do some things that way, as a family, and have relationships that way, with some of my cousins and things like that. But um, outside of that, it hadn't been much hunting anymore.
Yeah. Do you, for the duck hunting, do you spend a lot of time doing that yourself these days, or is it mostly just the guided service?
No, it's mainly just a guided service anymore. Um, I get, we'll probably do last, for the last 2 years, we've done it, where my family, we used to travel the week after Christmas, and we would go Arkansas, Missouri, Louisiana, something like that. And we would go travel somewhere else.
Hmm.
Um, to now. I told my family, is like, look, like that's my prime business time is during that. So basically what we've had them do for the last 2 seasons now is they come up here to North Carolina and we hang out for 4 to 5 days, and it's a whole lot cheaper on expenses for everybody. And you come up here sea duck diver hunting, man, in November, it's crazy stupid good. And majority of the days we're off the water by 8 o'clock in the morning anyway. So we'll come back and go get a bushel or two of oysters and hang out and fellowship out in front of the shop, chuck oysters. Hey, guess what? Like, hey, I can go jump on a buddy's boat in the afternoon. Now let's go trout red fishing in the afternoon into the evening time frame and come back with trout and redfish for dinner. Um, so it's a different aspect of it. But it's something this past year we actually had a full fruition of it. I had my cousin, one of his buddies, my uncle, my dad, a nephew, all got involved. They all came up here for 4 days, man, and we had a blast for 4 straight days
Yeah.
of it. So it was a good time.
Well, I think I know what I want to do for my birthday this year.
Man,
It.
it's crazy. So this past year, 2024, I had this great shop built. It's a 30 by 50 with like 20-foot ceilings. And we've talked about like throwing some bunk beds and things in here. The downside is there's not a full bathroom. It's a sink, toilet. We've talked about adding in maybe a shower now that like all the inspections and stuff are passed,
Mhm.
and could actually have like, hey man, like you want a duck hunt? Hey, come in. I got a place for you to stay, sleep, small little kitchen area. I can get you oysters. You got a griddle, all this stuff. Hey, you can jump in with the in the truck with me, and we'll travel to go shoot the ducks. We'll come back. We'll clean the birds and do everything. And granted, some of the times the travel time kind of sucks. When we leave from the house because it's like the furthest I'll drive is about an hour from here.
Mhm.
So, you have to leave and get up early and do things, but it I think it's fun, man. I love it. It's a busy time of year for me. Almost, granted duck season's like 60 days, but I do take a few days off from it, when I got family that comes up. Thanksgiving time frame, I don't hunt because normally we go to South Carolina to spend time with family down there, especially with the baby. We do that during Christmas too. So there's probably about 10, 12 days that we miss out on. So there's anywhere from 45 to 50 days that is almost straight duck hunting. And it's a blast. I love it.
Yeah.
And that's probably the question that gets asked the most. It's like, what is your favorite thing to do? Is it fishing or is it duck hunting? And I was like, man, honestly, it's both. Like, you get two completely different worlds. You get two completely different clientele behind it. Um, and it's just two different times of seasons. Summertime frame, it can be a long, hot grind, but when you can see the sunrise and the sunset and everything in between, and good Lord willing, having a fun day of catching fish and a fellowship with people, everything I look at it is the fish, the harvest, everything else is a plus on that back end.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy your experience? Did I give you a good day on the water? That's what my end goal is. You know, catching the fish and doing things, killing a duck, doing all of that. That's like the highlight of it. But leading up to all of that, like how else was it perceived? Was it a good day? Did I entertain you? Did I do things? Did I have right conversations? Like I'm not here to, hey, here's a rod, have at it. Hope you catch a fish. Like, no, like, hey, like, I see you're doing this with this rod. Like, hey, man, like, just change that twitch just a little bit, Hey, maybe pull up, let that bait sink just a little bit longer, Try to coach and do things involved with it.
Mhm.
So,
Sounds like a lot of fun.
I tell people, 20 years in the military, like it was stupid stressful. But honestly, like I think guiding is really more stressful than that. Um, because when you got people trying to pay you to catch a fish or do things, right? Um, it's like, all right, well, I got to get this wild animal to cooperate to do things. Like I'm hoping they're going to do the right thing, but when they don't start doing the right thing, I start beating myself up in the head. But then I also try to keep an engagement with the clientele to keep things rolling, to try to keep it smooth.
Right.
So it's trying to make sure like you get the best of both worlds. Trying to make sure you got a good experience going on, and hopefully be able to catch and kill fish and do things too. So
How long do your trips usually go?
the majority of the fishing trips are anywhere from like on average 4 to 5 hours. Um, for I tell people, which is considered like a half a day trip. Outside of that, I get a few people who do a little bit more than that want to go longer boat rides and do things, sightsee a little bit more. The duck hunting side of things, man, it'll go from normally about an hour before sunrise or before legal shooting light, so we can get everything set up with breakfast cooked. Um, so you're normally the longest you're on the water is normally by lunchtime, unless it's absolutely horrendous, and then we'll just kind of, hey, let's just pick up and just keep moving, and we'll find different birds. But normally that's not the case.
So your um I guess packages go all the way down to a single day.
Yeah, we can do anything from a half day all the way to a full day on the water.
Is there multiple day options?
So I mean, yes and no, I guess in a way. Um, I get people. I think this year was probably the first year I had people that booked me for a duck trip 3 days in a row. No,
Hmm.
they were staying down in Oriental, and it's like, hey, a big group of folks coming in. It's like 3 days blocked out. I've had some guys fishing wise like 2 day or a day to 2 days kind of thing. That's about the gist of it.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
But
Where
majority of the multiple days is probably more the duck hunting side of it than
I
the fishing
imagine.
side.
Yeah. Just like a long weekend, probably kind of thing.
Yeah, long weekend or people wanting to get together for a good long while. Long term friendships that want to come together. Um, you know, a big crew I had this year, man. They were coming from uh, Western North Carolina. Was one guy. I think two guys came from Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and one was like out of Wisconsin.
Hmm.
So and they came and all down to Oriental, North Carolina for 3 days and hung out and dealt with me for 3 days.
Is that normal you where you go out of?
It varies. And I tell people, especially a couple days beforehand, I'll try to give you a good idea of where we're going to be leaving from. Normally that time frame, there's not a lot of places booked up anyway. So it can be from New Bern to Oriental to Vandermeer, um, all the way, Cedar Island occasionally. But it just depends on the wind, weather, birds.
Yeah.
Every day can be a little different.
Yeah.
You know, that big group sticks out in my head quite a bit. So I had them staying in Oriental. Wind directions decided to shift one day. So one day I had to have them jump on the Minnesota Beach ferry, travel across. So we left a little later, but didn't have to make a long boat ride because of the wind directions. Went out, had a killer day on birds. Hey, the next 2 days we'll be leaving out of Oriental. So had to make them travel for a little bit on day one, but the next 2 days they were right there beside their hotel.
Right.
So it's a lot of back and forth with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where do you get your oysters from?
So if you're staying here, I got a lady I deal with. She runs also she runs uh, upholstery business, Smurfette Refinishing.
Hmm.
But she's got her commercial license and things. So she sells oysters and go out and harvest them herself. Majority of them are big cluster oysters and things like that. But and like my opinion, you can't beat it. $60 a bushel, and have at it.
Yeah.
And they're crazy good. I love a salty oyster, man, and her like the ones that she get are crazy stupid salty and really good. So really can't complain about them.
Yeah. She just knows where a good harvest is.
Yep, she does great.
Very cool.
And
Uh,
I try to refer as many people as I can to her. I know a few guys who do like some of the selects. And I got another young kid that's in the business. He has his own true oyster farm. So he can sell them year round because it is an oyster farm.
mhm.
And he does really good. His oysters are pretty decent too. Um, so I also got that option, and he'll deliver the oysters as well. So
Hmm.
he's a little more expensive because they are farm raised oysters, and having to harvest and do all them things. But they're still a really good oyster on top of that too.
Yeah. What is the breakfast that you keep mentioning?
So I do a lot of different breakfasts. Anything from sausage and eggs, like just a straight stirred sausage egg breakfast, to a smoked sausage, egg and cheese bagels, to biscuits, to sandwiches. This year I started cooking pancakes on the boat. We would do pancakes, bacon, and eggs on the boat. It steak and eggs. It's a very breakfast burritos. I got a buddy that this year that also guides, and we started this whole new thing called Breakfast Wars.
Hmm.
I would, because normally, like, I'm cooking my breakfast first in the morning anyway, because I'm cooking my breakfast and then I'm putting you in the layout boat and kind of hanging out with other guys, where he's in a scissor rig. So he's cooking his breakfast kind of like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. So I'll start the day off, and he'll follow up with what he's cooking that later that day. So we started this whole breakfast war things, probably mid-season this past year, man. And it we had a lot of people message us both back and forth on Instagram, because we would tag each other constantly, and people were loving it. It was just good, clean humor, fun. Wasn't nobody hating on anybody, and people got to see what was getting like cooked up for breakfast in the morning. I got a one of my old physical therapists, man. She's down in Alabama. She's like, I love waking up in the morning and seeing what you guys are got going on now. Like, it's my morning entertainment.
Yeah.
So it was one of our things. So looking forward to bringing that back. When duck season opens up this year.
Yeah. What would you say are your future goals for being a guide?
Just to keep it rolling, man. I love the boat that I run. I run one boat for everything I do. I got a 24-foot Blue Wave bay boat. Right now, it's a 2016 model, and she does great, man. She's handled anything from the sound side to 55 miles offshore on the right days. So I'm impressed with it. I'm kind of happy where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
Um, One of my goals is, honestly, like, I would love a whole lot more business out of it. I think last year I ran probably close to 180 trips on the year. So I would love to dabble in that like 2 to 250 range on trip wise. Um, just to be able to test it just a little bit more. Um, you know, but either way you look at it, man, like if my trips don't increase, I'm still on the water that much. Because I'm constantly trying to learn on the water too. If I got a bad day on the water, it's because something didn't go right, and I don't like that. I try to make sure like I got a lot of things dialed in before I try to run a trip or anything. Um, I want to be successful as I can on the water any given day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but ultimate be all goal too, though, is like to make sure everybody stays safe. Hey, they like get you from point A to point B, nothing bad happens. Unfortunately, last year I do know we had an incident happen. No fault of mine. It was just a mechanical failure on the boat, and it turned a half day trip into like a 10-hour trip of waiting to get towed in. Um, you know, but that's part of boat ownership at some point in time, man. And something's going to break sooner or
Yeah.
later. And thank God I got the means and communications and things to get people insurance claims and all that stuff, man. But like we had to sit there and wait for somebody to come in and get the towboat and come and pick us up. So it literally turned into about 8 to 10 hour day on the water for that family. And that, they still caught fish in between and still did some things, but it it turned into a long day on the water for sure.
Yeah.
Much longer than we anticipated.
Did they catch extra fish because of that?
They didn't catch extra fish because by the time that all happened, like we were pretty dead in the water in the middle of the river.
Oh, okay.
Like everything was dead on the boat. But now all of that should be fixed again. So we'll see how this season goes.
Yeah. Was that toward the end then?
I actually want to say that was it July or August time frame when that happened. So we did a quick fix on the boat after doing some research and doing things. So got it knocked out so it wouldn't happen again for the rest of the summer, and then kind of cleaned it up later in November between duck season and fishing.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned diver ducks and sea ducks. And I was
yep.
talking a little bit about with this with the last guy I interviewed, because I don't think he's done sea ducks, but he's done divers. Um, there seems to be a large opinion that they're not great eating. I'm assuming though you like them.
I will 100% disagree with anybody that says a sea duck is not good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And is there a specific way you prepare it?
So I will say this too. I've heard it depends on the sea duck though. So mainly the sea ducks that I target are your scoters. You got a black scoter, surf scoter, white wing scoter.
Hmm.
Is my three main target sea ducks. They eat very good. They are not mainly fish eating birds. They're mainly crustacean eating birds. So they do have a darker meat because they do have more of an oyster, mussel, scallop digestive system that they eat. So what I tell people all the time is like, hey, this is a meatier bird because of that. What you need to do in preparation when you kill this bird, you get it home, you clean it, I clean it, whatever. Hey, do a saltwater brine for a day or two before you cook the bird or before you freeze the bird, ever how you do it. Breast it out, saltwater brine it for 2 to 3 days, get a lot of that hardiness out of that bird. After that, cook it however you see fit, and it will be a night and day difference.
Yeah.
That is my wife's favorite bird to eat, hands down.
Hmm. That's
Minus
interesting.
a teal. Minus a teal. A teal is the best eating waterfowl you're ever going to put in your mouth. A green wing teal. I'll put that. A green wing teal.
It
But
so go ahead.
I was gonna say, like you take a sea duck, man, and you do that. Um, a light salt pepper brine, a pan sear, man. One of our favorite ways to do any duck. I don't care. We'll take it, chop it up, and we'll put it on a on top of a salad as a protein, or make we've done a lot of pastrami with some of them, which I mean, when you do pastrami, smoking it and stuff, you get a lot of the flavors out of anything,
Yeah.
and kind of gives it that. But the poppers, like, I've had guys, man, literally the same day, take the sea duck, cut it up, put it in a brine for a little bit, go ahead and start smoking it, man, and they freaking crush it. It's like, man, I don't want to ever hear anybody talk bad about this bird.
You ever cook them whole?
I don't do whole. It's a lot of work. So majority of things I do is I just press them out.
Why do you say it's a lot of work? Just like because of time?
Not just the time. So if you actually try to pluck a sea duck,
Mm.
that would be a whole lot of time. Absolutely.
Hmm.
So the easiest way for me to breast a sea duck, man, is I'll just come in above the neck, make a good slit, get below that skin, grab it, just peel it right off.
Yeah.
Now, the moment you start to try to pluck them and pick fat, because I've tried that for people, because people was like, man, I want some duck fat. I would love to fry some duck fat up under my oysters and do things as well. Like, start to go pick those feathers, man. It's like, I'm not going to sit here for an hour plucking a daggum duck. I'm not going to do it.
If
So,
you did go through that process, would you want to, uh, I guess, remove all the innards first so they don't go bad during that time since it takes so long?
well, I mean, no. So a wild duck is much different than any other game species anyway. They travel, it's not a white meat bird like a chicken. It's a
Hmm.
dark meat bird, much like your cattle and stuff like that. So when you go to cook a duck anyway, like, you don't want to cook a duck past medium rare, because of that. It's not being a white meat chicken style bird. It's your typical red meat. So your red meats you can cook much rarer than you can a white meat kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
How, how, how does that, obviously there's the wild side of it, the game side of it. But what would the big difference be between like a store-bought duck that you can pan roast compared to that?
it would probably, like, your pan roast duck, like your pecking ducks and all that stuff that you get from the store. A lot of them being farm raised, you're gonna get a lot more meat off of those birds anyway, because they're being farm raised.
Hmm.
In that aspect, it's you're feeding that bird grains and doing things, where you got a wild duck, like, depending on what species you kill, that's what he eats. Much like a deer in a way. Like, unless you're running your own food plots and all this stuff for a deer, you know, a deer eats what it eats. It forages.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it.
Remember the first time I had a wild turkey, um, the number one thing I noticed is how much denser the meat was compared to any turkey you would buy at the store, which
Hmm.
in now that I've had wild turkey, I would almost say that it's like a fluffiness to the meat, if you know what I mean.
But it's not
Yeah.
getting the steroids and all that stuff like pumped into it. It's
Yeah.
got that, like you said, the denser meat behind it. But the first turkey I've ever I killed and tried to do things with is when you got to his legs, it's like, no, it's not even worth on those legs unless you're making some broth or stew with his legs and thighs, because that bird's constantly scratching around his whole life. So that meat on his legs and thighs are way tougher.
Oh yeah.
His breast is, oh man, it's some of the best breast meat I've ever had in my life,
Hmm.
because it was so tender and juicy. But like, the leg wise, is like, nope, not even worth messing with.
Yeah. I even
And,
tried smoking the legs, and it was hard to eat.
and it's a lot like a duck too. You figure a duck, man, like a duck, that breast meat is just sitting there taking all the fat and doing things, where the breasts or the legs, the thighs, the wings, that's what does all the work on a duck.
Yeah.
So it kind of goes to both sides of it.
Um, Is there for the trips that you take, is there an average for how many ducks a guest takes home?
So it so this the past two or three seasons, it's been 3 scoters per person, um, and 1 to 2 bluebills per person, depending on the time of the year.
Hmm.
But right, so but majority of things I do target is more of the sea duck side, especially out of the layout boat. I can do the diver or much more divers later in the season, but I feel a lot of times the divers, definitely a bluebill. A bluebill will come into a sea duck spread where a sea duck won't come into a diver spread of these in a layout boat because it's too much white. So you get too much white, a sea duck's not going to come into that. Where a diver will still come into it. So basically, you're looking 3 to 4 ish birds per person
Okay.
on that aspect of it.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's probably close to or if not limit for that for each type of duck
Yeah. So
that's
so
available.
you're yep. So basically, last few years, you've been allowed to kill 4 sea ducks total, but no more than 3 scoters. And then you can kill 1 or 2 bluebills depending on time of the season. This season we killed a lot of ruddy ducks too at a layout boat, so that got to add some bonus birds, a few buffle heads here and there. We actually didn't kill any redheads this year in the layout boat, which was kind of surprising. But you know, had some guys. We didn't kill any canvasbacks, but saw some. So um, it's just one of the things. Killed some we killed some ringneck ducks. Some guys had some early shots on some mallards that were just kind of flying over. Came down really low, quacking on top of them, and just didn't connect.
Hmm.
So,
Do you notice a big difference in flavor with the variety?
you can, like I said, like in my opinion, honestly, like you won't find a better tasting bird than a green winged teal.
Hmm.
But that's also a bird. You're looking, his breasts are like yay big, like
Yeah.
crazy small, right? But that is a super good bird, along with a wood duck too. Wood duck, mainly in the wood line, like eating acorns and stuff like that. So, um, really good meat on those birds as well. Crazy tender. But outside of that, man, once you get into diver species, like a lot of them are eating kind of the same stuff here and there, same kind of food or same kind of breast quality. It's just when people badmouth a bird, they just don't know how to cook it and prepare it.
Yeah.
I feel, like especially when you're chasing a wild game and like just take some time and learn it. You know, learn how to do a process behind that bird. Um, a merganser, hands down, no, I will not do a merganser. I've cut them things open, man, and the fishiness behind them birds. Um, I can mess with them and make them into like dog treats kind of things, but no, I'm not going to personally eat one.
Are those more available or it um where do
It,
they
it de-
pop up?
well, it depends on the area you hunt with those two. You can go kill a lot of hooded mergansers in the marshlands, some in the woods and stuff like that. A lot of the mergansers that we get shots on are more of your red-breasted style mergansers, bigger bird, but it's still a bird I wouldn't eat. Its main
Yeah.
diet is fish. Um, you know, so it makes for some good dog treats. But I've had guys literally sitting in the boat and say, "Hey, man, like." We're just gonna let all these mergansers fly. It's like, hey, that's totally up to you guys, man. Like, y'all pull the trigger on what you want to pull the trigger on. So,
Yeah. No argument there.
nope, not one bit.
Um Do you have any bucket list hunts?
Man, so I do. I got probably two, and both of them are two completely different spectrums, right? So, I would love to go to Alaska
Hmm.
and go kill a harlequin bird on the duck side of things. And other than that, I would love to go harvest an elk.
Hmm.
I don't have any preference on an elk. I don't care if it's a bull or a cow. I ain't got no reside. I've never been a horn hunter in my life. I've always been a meat hunter, but that's it. I'm not picky.
Yeah. Just get me the meat.
Yep,
Um, do you happen to have a favorite Bible verse?
I probably do. Let me get it for you real quick. I got it marked
Yeah. Take your time.
because my memory always sucks.
The hint. No, I would, if I was asked that question, I'd be like, I do. Give me a second to look it up.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's funny because I even have it tattooed on me. It's on my back, but I know it comes in Genesis. And I know it speaks of was it Genesis?
Is it hunting
Oh, what
related?
was it? Yes, it was.
Is it the one about Esau? I think it's actually on the back of the sweater I'm wearing. The take your quiver and your bow and go hunt me some venison.
Yeah, Jacob tells his son to take his bow and arrow and go hunt wild game. Genesis 27:3.
Yeah, that's a fun
Yep.
one.
Yeah. So I got an arrow that's and it's funny. My wife gives me a hard time because she's like, "What's tattooed on your back?" And I was like, "It's an error." She's like, "Well, what's an error?" She's like, "What kind of error did you make?" It's like, like an error, like bow and arrow kind of thing, like with um just a redneck side, like verse whatever.
Yeah.
Because I can do it right if I say arrow, but if I say it quick, it's an error.
Hmm.
So, but it's tattooed between both of my shoulder blades with that Bible verse written like right through the arrow itself.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So um, that was one of the things I had done. Wow, what was it 2012 when I was in the Philippines, man?
Yeah.
So
They have
yep,
gar artists out there.
yeah, we did, man. We had a tattoo artist that would come to our team house while we were there. So I had that done, and then I had a huge or decent little arm piece done with a huge angel overlooking like the from the mountains to the sea kind of thing um, over it.
Mm,
So on my bicep or from my shoulder to my bicep,
yeah.
and he freehand the whole thing. Like there was no stencil anywhere. So he was pretty daggone good.
Yeah, those are always interesting to see. My wife and I used to watch I can't remember the exact name of it. It was like Top Ink or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
The tattoo show. I always found that fascinating and I never ended up getting anything, but it did make me consider it for a while. My pastor actually has a story that he tells. I think he was having a hard time or something like that with his faith or something. And if I'm wrong about that and he listens to this, I apologize for butchering the story. But basically, he came to this concept that he was learning about of ships are always leaving the harbor, but they always need to find their way back to refuel, and that's kind of their home base. And he was kind of comparing that to the harbor being Christ, and we need to be guided back, and they do that by using a compass. And so uh, or maybe it was to God and the compass is Christ. Um, and so that meant a lot to him. So he just told his wife, he's like, I'm gonna go get a tattoo, and she's like, okay, just kind of random. And he gets this entire, I guess it would be like, yeah, down to like his elbow all the way. I think it's on his chest here, of this just compass with a bunch of stuff around it, and comes back, and his wife's like, "Oh, you got like a full tattoo."
Like you didn't get a small tattoo. Like
Yeah.
you went full bore, big tattoo.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, it's one of those things that's always appealed to me, but I've never pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not for everybody. 100%. I got some tattoos on my body that my mom absolutely hates.
Hmm.
Probably the one she hates most um was probably a 2008 or 9 ish tattoo that I got on my calf, and it's a huge Pabst Blue Ribbon girl on there. And like it's some great artwork, and it was all before like a rededication back into Christ and everything and all this stuff. So like yeah, but it's there. And she's just like, God, that's just so ugly. Get it I was like, but it's like, I can tell a story with it.
Yeah.
So
Somebody that doesn't know Jesus, you could as soon as they comment on that, lead them into a conversation.
yeah, like there's all kind of things. Pastors at the church that we go to now, man. Like he's got tattoos. Heck, his son's got a neck tattoo. And his son's a barber. He made a joke this past weekend. He's like, my son's leading people to Christ ever since he's been a little elementary kid, and now he's a barber. And so you lay him down on a chair with a straight razor to your neck. So it's like, oh, you want to learn about Jesus with a straight razor next to you?
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, come on, I'll teach you.
My pastor made a joke this last weekend of talking about different people and some of the issues they've had in church, and he says some people are here because you had a drug problem. Your parents dragged you to church. Talk to like for the idea that people are being forced to come to church,
Hmm.
and uh, the concepts forced down their throat. Which I guess going back to that going through the motions comment makes sense in certain situations, as long as it's not gonna cause a rebellious nature for it. Like as soon as I'm 18, I'm not going to church anymore.
Yep.
So um that I guess that was about it. That was kind of the end of my questions. Was there anything you were hoping to talk about that we didn't get to?
Not really. I had no idea. No, I'm gonna dig into your stuff a little bit more probably after tonight and see what it's a little more about. From what I remember, you just made a random post on one of the fishing groups or something like that, looking for people to come and talk to.
Yeah.
But now that I got a connection and a thing, I can kind of research it and hear a little more about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And if you have
So,
anybody that you think would be a good interview, I'd be happy to get referrals for that.
oh, absolutely. I definitely can steer some people in that direction. And give them links and the thing to the website or that you sent me earlier and be able to do things.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I'll have
So,
to definitely follow up about getting a trip to come out and either do some duck hunting or fishing.
yeah, either or, man. Like, I love fishing out of New Bern, which probably be closer to you anyway. Other than that, Swansboro, Morehead City, like I can fish anywhere in Eastern North Carolina, but that's like the three main places I like to do.
Hmm.
Outside of Vandermeer. Vandermeer I like to do too, but it takes it takes a special crew for me to go to Vandermeer
I
because
actually,
it can be really good fishing up there, but it sometimes it takes some time on that side of the world.
yeah. Well, I actually haven't been to New Bern yet. Almost made a trip a little while ago for I used to work in film and I was going to go check out the film festival over there. But I haven't had a chance to set the time aside. It's kind of what happens when you have kids is you lose a lot of your extra time.
Just a little bit.
So, all right.
But that's
Okay.
kind of what makes you a good dad out of it too, though, right? Like,
Having to be
well,
around.
being around and do things with your kids here and there.
Yeah. I'm trying to
So
make most of I have way too many interests, and my wife's always getting on me for it. Drive my dad crazy because I work with my dad, so he's always hearing what my next big thing is. Um, More recently, though, I'm attempting to make the decision behind whether or not to take on new activities. Will it benefit my kids, either in the short term or the long run, kind of thing?
Mm.
Build it around that, especially like
Yep.
when it comes to outdoor stuff. Like, am I doing this just for me, or am I trying to build a foundation so I can eventually bring them with me?
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the things too, like, especially now having a daughter and doing things like I would love for the fact that like, hey, when she's like just shy of going to kindergarten, I would love her to be on the boat every day with me
Mm-hmm.
or during her summer breaks. Like I would love for her to be my first mate on the boat constantly. Like even though I don't have a whole lot of work for a first mate on the boat, but I think it would be awesome.
Yeah,
So
tying hooks.
yeah, I could sit here in the shop rainy days and like, hey, tie all these rigs, like help me out, like learn this stuff.
Yeah,
Things that I had to learn on my own
right.
through
Yeah,
trial and error. Like, I mean, it could be a business if she wanted to. Like, she could completely take it over if she wanted to.
yeah. Make it a family
So,
business.
yeah,
Then eventually, way down the road, you'll have great grandkids asking who Gunny is.
yeah, exactly right. You know, it's the thought and the hope, but if she has no interest in it whatsoever, so be it too. But I told my wife, I think she had her lifetime hunting and fishing license by the time she was a week old.
Yeah.
So I was like, my parents didn't buy it for me. Um, One, I don't think they really knew it was a thing
Hmm.
until later in life. But I was like, heck, for whatever the price, I mean, whatever the price was of it, I can't remember it now, but I mean, crazy, stupid cheap in a way for a long term factor.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to buy it for her now. Hey, if she don't ever use it, guess what? Like 16 years down the road, it ain't gonna be lost.
Right. Yeah.
But if she takes a major interest in it, hey, it's covered. She ain't
Yeah.
never got to worry about it.
Yeah. I did that for my youngest. And I think there's still, I want to say the tier up from that goes up to 18. So I got a little time. But I'll make sure to do that for my other two as well at some point.
Yeah, I know it's definitely worth it. I bought mine. I bought my own personal one here in North Carolina in I don't know 2006 or seven. After like the first time I ever enlisted and realized I was going to stay in North Carolina my whole career, so
Hmm.
I'm just going to go ahead and buy this thing now and never have to worry about it again.
Yeah.
And by that time, it's paid for itself.
Every time I've renewed so far, I'm like, I need to buy it. And then it's my, renewal is like me looking at, okay, I got Christmas costs coming up and things like that. But
Yep.
at some point, I'll do it. I figure if I am at least in North Carolina for 10 years after buying it, it'll pay for itself.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I looked at it when I bought it. So
Where can people find you?
I could be found anywhere under Gunny B Outdoors, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everything Gunny B Outdoors. Even my uh, internet address is gunnyboutdoors.com. So everything is under Gunny B Outdoors. It's pretty unique. So
Yeah, very cool.
one of the fishing tournaments that we do, um, it's called Deuce River Fishers of Men. It's a big tournament trail. It's a 5-part series. And their main goal is to raise funds to give back into the community. And it's all a Christian organization based anyway. Um, so I'll try to get you in contact with that tournament director for that one. And I'll apologize on the front hand because Brian loves to talk.
Is he a dad too?
Yeah, yeah. He's a dad too. He's a granddad too now.
Okay.
So yeah. He's a retired school teacher now. He played baseball for ECU way back in the day. So he's all over the place. But yeah, he's a great guy, man. But he loves to talk. You get him talking, and he's gonna go, 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 go.
Oh, good.
But yeah,
I
I think that would be a good plug for you too. Um, with him, that organization, and see potentially where that could possibly go to.
Where are the events held, or
So,
and when?
well, majority of them are. So he does five. Three are typically in New Bern this year. Well, three's going to be out of New Bern this year, and two are in the Vandermeer area, unless he changes the boat ramp location for that one. So it's kind of been the last 3 years they've been back and forth. He'll run a New Bern, Vandermeer, Vandermeer, New Bern, Vandermeer, New Bern kind of thing. Um, just based off of what uh, fish have been doing over the last few years
Yeah,
is is where the tournament's been ran out of.
that's fun.
So you'll get some guys, man. Like I know last year, you take for example, we finished second last year in the whole point series, and I think out of all five tournaments, we had one bad finish out of the top 10, which kept us out of first place for the whole point series. But we would leave from Newburgh on at two of the three tournaments. We left from Newburgh and ran almost all the way to Pamlico River just because it was better fishing during
Yeah.
that time frame.
Is
So
it like per boat?
yeah, yeah. He normally has anywhere from you know 30, what I think like 20 to 40 boats, depending on the tournament. So he's got a pretty good little presence behind it.
Yeah.
And then the last tournament series at the captain's meeting itself, he'll go through and it's the longest captain's meeting in life on the last one, but it's also the one that's the best calls and shows what the tournament does. Um, is he'll have all the organizations come in that we were able to raise funds that go to them from from the church.
Right.
So it's pretty cool to see that and to see how it impacts people's lives just from fishing.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat to see that big turnaround.
That sounds like fun. What is the is there like I guess you'd call it stands or a place for people to watch?
He does well if you're there in New Bern, the Union Point Park in New Bern. Normally there's a last few years there's been a scale and everything there where people can come and hang out. This year is actually going to be done a little different since the first two tournaments really is going to be a speckled trout closure anyway on the first two tournaments.
Hmm.
So everything's going to be a catch and release. Um, but he's doing it where once you get the fish to the boat, you go live on an app, you weigh the fish with the scales that he provides, and then release the fish back into the water, all on video, so everything's updated, and they'll still do the awards live at the boat ramp that we leave from that day.
Yeah. So I
So
don't,
it's still kind of a neat process.
right. Kind of sounds like if I were to go down there for some content, it'd be best just to get on someone's boat
Potentially, yeah.
if there's room. I don't know how big those boats are.
Well, I mean, you figure, I mean, you got anywhere from mine. So I got a 24-foot boat. There's some guys that run all the way down to 20s, 18s. It just depends on the boat you get on. I think there's a couple 25s. But what I like about his tournament too is he involves, if it's up to the anglers too, like a youth angler is allowed to get involved, and the youth angler is fishing for their own bag behind
Hmm.
things. So not only is there a youth angler division, but there's also like the adult division that goes on as well on the same boat. So it's pretty neat to be able to get youth involved with it too,
Right.
which is one of the parts I really like. Not only for the giving back community wise, but like, hey, be able to get a youth involved into the tournament aspect of it is pretty neat.
What's the general age range for youth?
It goes probably anywhere from 6 to 15 is the cutoff.
Oh, okay.
So as long as the youth is 15 and under before the tournament starts, you can fish it as a youth angler. So if
That's
you turn 16 before the tournament, you're not a youth angler.
right.
So
Mid tournament, you can be 16.
yep. Mid tournament, you can still be 16.
That's funny.
So
Disqualified at this time.
yeah, but that's the way. Like, hey, starting a tournament, you're 15. Hey, you're 15 through the whole tournament, basically.
Yeah. I had someone go through kind of the opposite problem. It was a CCW class I was taking, and then at the end, the instructor's looking at everybody's license, and he's like, "You're not 21 yet." And she's like, "I'll be 21 in 1 month when I'm going to submit my application." And he's like, "Okay, come back to me in a month, and I'll sign this. I'm not going to sign it right now."
Wow, wow. I figured that would be a class you could take at any time.
You could take the
But
class, but you can't get the CCW until you're 21.
huh, okay,
And I think he just didn't want to lose his license to give CCWs.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't blame him. That's his neck. He's still on out there too.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
yep.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. Y'all have a good night, and yeah, I'm gonna go out here and walk around in this thunderstorm and get back to the house.
Yeah, have fun.
Yep.
Don't stay dry.
Yep. I'll try to, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in on greatoutdoorspodcast.com. And if you happen to be listening or watching on one of our social media platforms, you should check out greatoutdoorspodcast.com for some cool merch like this hat or this awesome coffee cup for camping. And this awesome sweater as well, which features our classic Genesis 27.3. Take your quiver and your bow and go hunt me some venison. Your wife's gonna love the way you look in this. Right, honey?
Uh-huh.
GreatOutdoorsPodcast.com.
Why?